So the piece is about Amazon's disturbing turn towards tyranny. Amazon is shaking the Coke machine too, engaged in one of the largest extinction bursts in human history, along with their Democrat masters. Amazon is now banning books altogether, which, as I've repeatedly stated to you, is worse than book burning, because at least in book burning, you have the book. So you can probably photocopy it on the QT before the Democrat tyrants come to burn the book, right? You can actually preserve some of the content. Book banning is even worse than book burning. Headline: book banning in an age of Amazon. The world's largest bookstore begins quietly deleting books. Holy Moses, we are now living in a totalitarian dystopian society, and liberals are shaking the Coke machine all the way through. She talks about and addresses this first argument, number one, which liberals always make disingenuously. Again, not realizing they're canceling themselves, liberals, because they're shaking the Coke machine. They say, hey, we're all about free markets, Joe. That, by the way, that's hilarious. Yeah. Liberals are all about capitalism. Again, the same liberals that want to impose government mandates on free markets for wages, environmental rules, content you can put on your show. They want to boycott ideas they don't like. They're all about free markets now, Joe. So she says in the piece, Abigail, she goes, some will argue it's Amazon's right to drop a book. Though it possesses many of the frightful powers of government and few of the limitations, Amazon is not the government. As a private company, many argue, it retains the right to stock its shelves with whatever it chooses. As someone put it to Abigail on Twitter, Publix stopped carrying my favorite salad dressing. You know what? I went to another store and bought it. Sounds compelling, right, Joe? You're like, yeah, it sounds right, Dan. You're a free market cat.
Yeah.
Amazon can do what it wants, right? No big deal. That's interesting that liberals would make that argument, that Amazon's a free market private company. Liberals are all about capitalism now, so we should cancel books we don't like because Amazon, quote, can do what it wants. Well, that's really interesting because when we go to screenshot 2, Joe, the liberals made the exact opposite argument about the guy in Colorado who refused to bake a cake for a gay wedding. Wait. So the same liberals who want to impose upon free market companies, Joe, who can, quote, do what they want to tell them what to pay their workers, whether they can afford it or not, want to make them subscribe to a bunch of environmental regulations that are largely counterproductive most of the time. They want to dictate to cable news companies like Fox and My Show and elsewhere what's allowed on public airways. But you can do what you want as long as you do it's what we want. But that's not what I want. You just said I could do what I want. I'm a free market company. We were just kidding. And by the way, bake that cake. Bake that cake immediately. She goes on, quote, we'll call this the Colorado Bake Shop argument, she says, which the Supreme Court considered in Masterpiece versus Colorado Civil Rights Commission. Private businesses might have the right not to sell certain things customers want. By the way, I totally agree with that. It's my cake shop, damn it. I get it, too. Liberals like, Dan, are you being a hypocrite? No. Stand by. It's my cake shop, damn it, runs the argument. If the proprietor doesn't want to create a cake celebrating a gay wedding or anything else that violates his conscience, maybe he shouldn't have to. Folks, whether you agree or not, I agree with that approach. Well, Dan, now aren't you being a hypocrite? You're saying that the cake shop is a private business. It, quote, should be allowed to do what it wants. No, I'm not saying it should be allowed to do whatever it wants. We do have laws. I mean, the cake shop can't go baking cakes and assaulting old women with the cakes and slamming them in the face, putting them in the hospital. There are certain rules and regulations in a constitutional republic where we preserve the civil liberties of others as well. But what's interesting is we do have a First Amendment. And the owner of the cake shop had some sincere religious beliefs. I'm not asking you to agree with them. I candidly don't care if you agree with them or not. He had a constitutional right to not engage in behavior he felt violated his sincerely held religious beliefs. Is Amazon making that argument on a more dramatic scale? Does Amazon have some religious problem with banning books about transgenderism? Have they made that argument yet? I haven't heard that. And does scale matter? Something I've thought about often, which Abigail Scher puts down in words far more eloquently than I've ever said on this show. Here's the scale argument, which is a good one. Part 3 of this. But that argument is inept. Amazon isn't a neighborhood bakery. Small independent bookstores can and often do claim to be in the business of promoting a certain kind of speech. There are Christian bookstores and feminist bookstores and everything in between. And forcing such stores to sell books they don't like would compromise the owner's free speech rights by forcing them to engage in what is arguably a form of compelled speech. They'd be right. But Amazon operates on a vast scale. Scale is the difference between homicide and genocide, a pickpocket, and Bernie Madoff. Brilliant. Number one, in the Colorado bakery case, the owner is claiming an allegiance to a sincerely held religious belief, which is a constitutionally protected right. Last time I checked, Joe, it was still there in the Constitution. Was there an amendment since I left? Was there an updated amendment, like subsection 1 footnote to the First Amendment?
No, same old stuff.
Checking.
Yeah.
Okay. Same old. Yeah, I thought so. I'm just, we got to, fact checks are important on the show. So he is allowed to believe in these things, whether you agree with them or not, just like you're allowed to believe in things we don't agree with too. Second, Amazon's not making that argument. They're just banning the book because they're succumbing to the liberal cancel culture brigade. 2B, Amazon is on a far different scale. Share goes on. I didn't take a screenshot of this. In the interest of time, I got to wrap it up soon because I've really enjoyed the hell out of this show. And I've talked a little too much about stories. But she makes the point later in the piece that it's Amazon's scale that is the difference here. We have always, in a society that's respected free and competitive markets, we have always had rules and regulations, just like the left wants on wages and all this other stuff. We have always had a bipartisan consensus on anti-competitive behavior, Joe. Hence, we've had the Sherman Antitrust Act. You are not allowed to engage in monopolistic anti-competitive behavior. There's even rules against mergers and acquisitions of companies if their sole intention is to destroy competition and charge some form of a monopoly price. Share makes the argument later in the piece that Amazon's incredible scale, 60% of books or so are sold on Amazon, that if Amazon decides to ban a book just because they want to cancel people, no one is claiming any kind of constitutional right, that if Amazon bans a book, they wipe out the entire market because that author, knowing that he won't be sold or she won't be sold on Amazon, Joe, will never get a publishing deal. She makes the further case that then publishers start to understand that conservative thought is dangerous, and they then will invent euphemisms to turn conservative authors down. So you have this cascade of horribles where Amazon uses its scale to shut down conservative ideas. Conservative authors then can't get published. Publishers then wipe out any conservative book on their roster because they can't get published either. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing now and starting up a conservative economy.